We're talking about love. We started talking about love last week, and not like the sweaty palm, warm, gushy, mushy, Hallmark card, hearts kind of floaty thing loves, but the kind of love that actually keeps a marriage together for 50 years. The kind of love that keeps a friendship together for decades, and you get together and say, "Hey man, yeah, we're just like buddies," right? The kind of love that Jesus said people would look at us and say, "Wow, there's something different about them. They must be disciples. They must be followers of Jesus." That kind of love. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next few weeks. It shows up, as we talked about last week, in the simple acts of kindness that we do for one another. It shows up in bearing with the annoyances we have towards one another. We talked about that last week. It shows up in refusing to be lazy with our actions, with our words, that well, I'm hungry or I'm tired, so I can treat you poorly, but it causes you to actively not be rude. Corinthians 13 says, and that's what we're talking about, that kind of love. This obviously applies to the romantic relationship, but it's really for every relationship. It's for people, anybody you say you love, or you may not even say you love, but you love them, your family, your neighbor, your coworkers. It's for everybody, right? This was written to a church. So hopefully you love people here. Just go ahead and say it. I love you. Oh, see, you said it all warm and gushy. I love you. Maybe that's kind of a Corinthians 13 love. I love you. No, I don't know. Never mind. Let's just read it. I'm going to bury myself in a hole here. 1 Corinthians 13. This is the kind of love. Paul gave us action words, right? They're not warm fuzzies. They're action words. 15 action words in this little text here. Love is patient. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Love is kind. It does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Now, last week, I've already mentioned it, we looked at 3 of these action words, the kindness, the patience, not being rude. Today, we're going to look at four different words, so we kind of get into this thing that tells us that love is for others. Last week, we said love is in the mundane, the day-to-day. This week, love is for others. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about the people that I claim to love. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not arrogant. Does not insist on its own ways. Those are the words we're going to break down today. And I want you to take a moment and just kind of let this soak in a little bit before we go on, all right? Because I know how this works. You're going to be hearing this today and thinking, yeah, right on, yeah, I'm with you, and yeah, good stuff. This really going to be life-changing for me, or you might not be thinking that. But here's what's going to happen. In 4 years, you're going to come and say, man, I don't think I can hang out with my husband anymore, or my wife, or whatever, because they're just not meeting my needs. That's going to mean you're missing everything we're saying today, right? I don't think I can continue in this relationship with my neighbor, whatever, whoever, it doesn't matter, because I'm just not getting out of it what I'd like to get out of this thing. It's not about you. That's today. Love is for others. Love is for other people. I can't stay at this church. I don't know that they really love these people. No one ever says it that way, but that's what they're getting at. I fell in love with another church. Okay, just understand, it's not about you. It's about others. So let that soak in, and we're going to break this down a little bit. Because we're going to have an awkward conversation in 4 years when I say, yeah, remember what I said 4 years ago? Okay, so, all right, here it goes. Love does not envy. Does not envy. Some translations use the word envy. Some use jealous. The meaning of the Greek word is to burn with zeal, to be heated or to boil with envy. The idea is I really, really want something someone else has to the point it consumes you. Have you ever been consumed by someone else's success, someone else's material possessions, someone else's relationship, whatever, it doesn't matter what. Something that you consume, you think, I want that so bad that it actually affects the relationship. Certainly happens. I have a friend who was a new follower of Christ years ago, and was an over-the-road trucker. And so being an over-the-road trucker, he'd be gone for weeks at a time sometimes, or several days. And so sometimes he'd bring his wife with him, and just to go on the trip because they could, And one time, she came and was talking to me, and she went on the trip with her husband, and they're driving down the road, and it's hours on the road. Like, so you get bored. You can only talk about the weather for so long, or whatever. And she's just kind of staring out the window. You ever done that? Driving down the road and it's kind of staring out the window, looking at the grass go by, the trees, whatever. Not really thinking about anything. Just kind of staring. And her husband suddenly gets really angry at her. It's like, "What are you looking at?" It's like, "Well, just kind of staring out the window. I mean, what do you mean? I'm nothing. What should I be looking at?" And he's like, "I want you to look at me. I'm your husband." And she came to me like, "What do I do with this?" Now, in his defense, he's not really a narcissist, right? But he did have to learn that love's not about really him. It's about her and her desire and her needs. It was really an awkward time for them, but he grew through that. He grew through that. Love does not envy. He had to learn that. We all have to learn that to a certain point. When you allow envy, when you allow jealousy into the relationship, it can break that relationship down. It can actually split you apart. It can tear families apart. Someone gets a job promotion that you wish you had. When you see them, all you can think about is, "Well, I want that job." And it can actually ruin your relationship. Someone gets a new house or build an upgrade to their house, remodels, whatever, and you kind of want to do it, but you can't afford it yet. When you see them or you go to their house, all you can think about is, I want to do that. And it kind of affects your relationship if you allow it to. All you can think about is your house. It becomes about you. It becomes about you. Your friend dates super attractive people. You become discontent with who you're with. Cheryl's friends really struggled with that when we were dating. I kept telling them, really, I'm not that much, but they struggled. If you don't control it, jealousy can rip apart a relationship. It can drive people apart. Genesis 37 tells us about a family that was torn apart by jealousy. Right? This was a close family. This was like a God family. I mean, you have Abraham who gets the big promise, right? Abraham, a lot about Abraham in the scripture. He has a son, Jacob, and Isaac has a son, Jacob, and Jacob has 12 sons. These 12 kids, jealousy ripped the family apart. Ripped it apart. You have Joseph, teenager guy, 17-year-old-ish guy, is favored by his father. The other 11 brothers, it's obvious. I mean, he gets the special coat, and he gets a special treatment, blah, 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 blah. And the others absolutely hate the idea that he is being the favorite of the family, and jealousy creeps in and destroys the family. Genesis 37 says, when his brothers saw their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, could not speak peacefully to him. You think you have family fights? This is intense here. The next verse says, Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He had a couple dreams, actually, where he was the center of attention and all of them bowed down. And he told them about it, and he thought it was kind of a cool dream. I probably would have too if I had that dream. And they hated him even more. Go down to verse 11. It says his brothers were jealous of him. Now, this jealousy led to some extremely destructive behavior. We're not going to go through and read the whole story, but if you've heard the story of Joseph before, you remember that his brothers decide to kill him. Then they decide, hey, there's some people going by, let's just sell him as a slave. So he gets sold into slavery, sentencing him to basically a life of cruelty. He's now a slave. He ends up in Egypt. Ultimately, he goes to jail for a crime he did not commit. But in this process, this is the number of years that go by, God does a miracle. He is released from jail, actually becomes a second in command in all of Egypt. And through this amazing story, several chapters of Scripture of grace and forgiveness and redemption, God reunites this family several years later. And there's a lot of needless pain that happens in between the forgiveness and the jealousy that rips them apart. There's years of pain and heartache for all of them in the family because of jealousy, because of envy. When you're filled with envy, You'll say things you wouldn't say. Have you ever said something to something and later on you think, man, I think, that was kind of, shouldn't have said that. And really the root was jealousy. Or you'll do things that you wouldn't normally do, but you're jealous of them. Once, years and years and years ago, we had a situation where my brother was kind of jealous of a situation we were in, and I don't know, something happened. It had something to do with my dog, and whatever. He came in, and he was like, he had some stuff in storage at our house, and he was throwing dishes out of the door. He threw his really nice bike outside and like bent the rims up and everything. He was so angry. It was totally a jealousy thing. I mean, we worked all through that, but that wasn't his normal self. Jealousy absolutely wedged in there and caused some really serious issues for the time. It does all kinds of damage. It gets you to even rejoice in the sufferings of the people around you. It's no wonder Paul says in Corinthians 13, biblical love does not envy. You find yourself with those twinges of jealousy, man, put a stop to that. Figure out a way to work that out. Pray about it. Go to God about it. Get that out of your life, because if you let that rest and let that keep going, it will destroy your relationships. People at work, people in your family, doesn't matter. People in the church. You've got to get that settled. Settle it. Figure it out. Next one, love does not boast. Means behave as a braggart. Be a windbag. I kind of like that. I'm a windbag, right? Love is for others. It's not for you. Boasting, what does that do? It brings the attention back to you. Someone has something going on, and the boaster comes in, and what does it do? It brings the attention back to them. I could break my arm, and I have some fantastic story about how my arm was broken, and I come in, and I was on this big fight, and I saved the world, and it was wonderful, and everybody's like, well, you're really great. Man, that must have been terrible, though. Boy, that really hurts, and people talk. And then what happens? Someone comes in, oh, that's nothing. Just see when I broke my arm. And they tell some story how they jumped off a 14-story building and landed on bricks and broke their arm in 4 places and captured some guy. And, all of a sudden the story becomes about them. Took it from me and took it to them. That's what the braggart does, or a windbag. They're trying to take the attention to them. Well, love's about the other person. You catch a big fish, and you put it on social media, and you're like, yeah, look at this fish I bought. What happens? Some people are like, hey, cool fish. What do the other people do? That's nothing compared to what I caught. All of a sudden they're telling all these stories. You should have seen it was like this, it was crazy, That's just being boastful, All of a sudden, who cares about your dumb fish? Think about me. You can even do about my fish. It's just, we do this naturally. You just have to be careful of it. You have to be careful. Your friends' children succeed at something. Your temptation is not to celebrate with them, but to remind them how awesome your children are. We all probably have a tendency to do that because, they're our kids, and there's already a special place in our hearts for them, and we're like, well, we got to tell you about our kids. And I have to remind myself sometimes not to do that because my kids really are awesome. I mean, they're adults now, and that's kind of embarrassing. I got to be careful what I say about them, but they've overachieved in a lot of areas. They're both going into doctorate programs. One of them has like a name on a plaque on the wall at the Johnston High School. There's some cool stuff I can say, but who cares, right? If little Susie had a flute solo and did a great job, I want to celebrate little Susie. I don't need to say, well, did I mention about the all-state performances? Who cares? That's a braggart. That's a windbag. That's a windbag. Take a step back and let them celebrate. You don't need to bring the attention to you. Love is about them. Little Susie's not here. A good thing. She'd be embarrassed. Let them celebrate. Let them celebrate their accomplishments. Let them celebrate their children or their job promotions or their new home or their new car or whatever it is that goes on. You don't have to boast and bring the attention back to you. Sometimes I got to be careful about that because I am kind of prideful and I can get boastful about the things that have worked well, and I kind of keep quiet about the things that didn't work all that well because I don't want you to know about that, and I'm going to tell the good stuff, Love is not boastful. It's not about me. It's about others. The other day, I was in a conversation with a friend of mine from Zimbabwe, and She grew up in the orphanage there, and now she's an adult and she has a job, and she lives in Shredzi, where we stay when we go to Zimbabwe. And we were just having this great conversation and talking about different people we know, common friends in Zimbabwe. And hey, you know Alone? Yeah, he was the director of the orphanage. And I'm like, yeah. And somewhere in there, she sung a little song. And she said, did they sing for you at the orphanage? I'm like, yeah, they did. Well, that's how we say thank you, because we came and did a little party and hung out with the orphans. And that's how we say thank you. And so, oh, yeah, I know. Anyway, so she sung a little song and sent me an audio file of her song. And it says, our God is an awesome God. It was just a nice little song. Oh, it was so cute. I let my wife listen to it. I said, look at this. This guy sent me a song. Isn't this neat? And she listened to it. And she's like, oh, is that in Shona? They speak Shona. They don't speak English. Now, it was in English, all right? My first thought was, are you serious? I was kind of an arrogant, you can't tell it's English. Now, I was going to say something out of my arrogance that probably would have hurt her feelings. But I kind of paused a minute. I thought, the first time I went there, I had struggled to really understand what they were saying. Because they speak English, they also really speak Shona, and they have a really heavy British accent going on. There's all these heavy accents going on at the same time. And sometimes they would say something really simple, hey, I really love the red door over there. And they'd have to say it like 6 times, because I was hearing all kinds of stuff. But it was English. Once I heard it, it was like, they were just accenting different syllables and different, pronouncing vowels differently and stuff. And so I've been there enough now that I hear it. All I hear is the English. Well, my poor wife, she didn't know I had this arrogant thought until last service, so we have counseling coming up this week, because she was in the first service. I almost said something really arrogant and terrible that would have hurt her feelings when I had to pause. Luckily, before I opened my mouth, I paused and thought, in my arrogance, I was going to be a windbag. Of course she wouldn't understand how she doesn't have the experience that I have with the language. You got to remember that when you talk to some people. You may have more education. That doesn't make someone less valuable. You may have more experience. That doesn't make them less valuable. And you may have more talent in an area. That doesn't make someone else less valuable. You treat them with love. Love is about them, not about me. Arrogance elevates me. Love elevates them. So it comes out in your language or in your tone of voice and so forth. So it should be careful. Arrogant. How about love does not insist on its own way, not self-centered, is how some versions put it. I was thinking about this, how do we wrap around our minds, our thoughts around this one? Does not insist on its own way. And I read this paragraph in a commentary because I thought, they're smart people. People write stuff down, and sometimes I can get ideas from it, and I thought, I'm just going to steal it. So this directly, I can't even arrogantly say I came up with this. I didn't. I just read this and thought, hey, this is kind of cool, because this really describes what we're talking about and does not insist on its own way. It's bigger than an action word. This is like the Christian faith. This is everything in one little sentence here. This is what the commentator said. In some ways, this is the fullest expression of what Christian love is all about. It does not seek its own. It does not believe that finding oneself is the highest good. It's not enamored with self-gain, self-justification, self-worth. To the contrary, it seeks the good of one's neighbor or enemy. I think the hardest part about this, there's quite a bit packed in there. The hardest part about this is this completely goes against our nature. We are consumed with ourselves. We just are. If I'm hungry, I want to eat. And I have a particular thing I want to eat, and if you want to eat something different, you're dumb, right? Why would you be so inconsiderate? I want to eat this, and you want to eat that. That's silly. We get consumed with ourselves. If we're driving, we honestly believe the road belongs to us. I'm driving down the road, and I get so annoyed with people who are going slower than me. What's wrong with them? And I'm annoyed with people going faster than me who are passing me, and they're annoying me because I'm trying to get around the slow people, and they're trying to get around me. It's like they're going too fast, the other people are going too slow. What's wrong? It has nothing to do with the speed limit. It has to do with what mood I happen to be in. Because tomorrow it's going to be a completely different speed. Or after I eat, but I'm not in such a big hurry. Whatever it is, right? But it's all, I'm self-centered. I'm just how I am. I get angry because they're driving differently than me. They must be wrong. It goes against our nature. If I'm thirsty, I want to drink now. If I'm uncomfortable, I want to fix that, whatever that takes, now. If I'm feeling a little romantic, I don't want any complaints about it. Let's just get some going, right? If we're ready to leave the house, why isn't everybody ready? Now, because I'm ready. What's wrong with you people? It's about me. We're self-consumed. By nature, it's about us. But what's biblical love about? Them. So it's a reverse of everything in our nature. It's a discipline. Can you imagine the change that would take place in your relationships if you allowed your needs and your goals and your desires and whatever it is to be less important and the needs, goals, desires of the other people to become more important in your life? Would that radically change a few relationships in your world? If married people practice more selflessness, where all you cared about was meeting the needs of your spouse, even if you're thinking, well, that's silly, but they said that's a need, you would just follow that and do your best to meet that need, where all that mattered was pleasing your spouse. Whether they're pleasing you or not, whether they're doing their part in the relationship or not, I 100% guarantee it will change your marriage. Because love's about them, not about you. How would your relationships at work change if your biggest goal was to make your coworkers more successful? Well, that's not good for my promotion. That's not good for my whatever. It radically change a few things, probably, because we're consumed about ourselves. What kind of church would we be if we really cared more about meeting the people outside of the walls than we did inside the walls? That's what love does. There's no real clever story or poem or top 10 list that we could post to sum this idea. I love it. I mean, we could come up with something, and there's plenty of stories out there, but to really make this click for you, I don't know. I was going to do a top 10 or something, and I thought, I don't know. It'd just be something we'd go, yeah, great list, and then we'd go on and not do anything about it. The thing is, this is what we talked about last week. This love is a decision. It's not a warm fuzzy. It's not a natural. It's a commitment, a decision that says, I'm going to act this way. I'm going to do these things, even when I don't want to. My love will be for others when I want it to be for me. Complete reverse of how we think. If I really love my spouse, I will not insist on my own way, but meet them halfway or wherever you agree to meet on things. If I really love my neighbor, I'll think of their needs over mine. If I really love my family, I'll put them first. If I really love the people in my church, I won't make church about me. It'll be them. Well, I'm just not getting fed. Well, who are you feeding? Well, I don't like this. Well, who are you doing to improve things? It's about them, not us. Love is a choice. Love is a commitment. This love, it's not something that we have the luxury of just like taking a break from. We don't have the luxury of getting in a relationship and thinking, well, this is just going to naturally happen. I can just coast my way out here. It doesn't. You have to always focus on this multiple times a day. The words you say, the things you do, the way you act, how content you are in a relationship. It all boils down to this and decisions that you make. Biblical love goes against our nature.